A few of them even came up to James to pull him away. "Get lost, kid," they rebuked. "You have no business here. Who are you? You too, Thea. Why can't you keep an eye on your good-for-nothing husband?" Thea looked at the others and said, "My husband has medical skills, too. In fact, his skills are better than your average doctor's. I believe in him. He can save Quincy. Your trust in him means nothing. Will you take responsibility if something happens?" "Everyone shut up," James suddenly shouted. Everyone closed their mouths at his command. James approached Quincy and looked at the wound on her thigh, then at the other symptoms on her body. After that, he looked at her complexion. He lifted her eyelids to look at her pupils. Then, he pulled her arm up to take her pulse. "Tree viper." James narrowed his eyes. Adds by Pub Future. From what he knew, tree vipers were commonly bred for the medicinal value in their venom. When mixed with medical herbs, they could cure diseases. However, this snake was purely poisonous. Those that were poisoned would die within an hour. He looked at Quentin. "What, at a loss?" Quentin said smugly. "I'll tell you one time. I'm mad now, so I'm not going to do anything." Quentin had James pinned in a corner. How could this trash cure the poisoning? He'll come crawling to him eventually. That way, he'll be able to bring Quincy back to his room, fair and square. He'll give her the antidote and feed her his drug, then Quincy will be at his mercy. James smiled faintly. He stretched his hand out and touched several of Quincy's acupuncture points, then took some silver needles out from the back of his waist before quickly sticking them into Quincy's body. His movements were fast, so fast, that no one around him could see what he was doing properly. Soon enough, Quincy's body was filled with silver needles. James reached out and touched her thigh. Thea frowned slightly at the scene. However, she said nothing since he was trying to save a life. James pressed his hand gently on Quincy's thigh. Black blood instantly appeared around her wound. At the same time, the crowd could clearly see the stark contrast of the black blood flowing through her veins against her fair skin. Finally, they all converged together and, as James squeezed gently, flowed out of her wound. When everything was done, James picked the needles out of her body and casually tossed them into a nearby trash can. The toxin in her body was removed, and Quincy finally regained consciousness. She may have been on the verge of consciousness, but she was still aware of what had happened. She knew James had saved her. "Thank you," she said softly. James waved his hand lightly. "It was nothing." Quentin stared dumbfounded at the scene. "Impossible. This is impossible," he shrieked. "How can some needles force toxins out of her body?" "Ah, I know. You must have bred the snake that bit Quincy. That was why you knew what to do." His words started a wave of commotion. Everyone turned to look at him. James smiled faintly. "So the culprit reported his own crime. I can't believe you'd breed poisonous snakes, James. What are you acting for now? To win Quincy over. You have a wife. Quincy is your wife's best friend. What a disgusting person." People started rebuking him. Quentin was pleased with this outcome. That son of a bitch James ruined his plan. All his hard work would be in vain if James did not at least get his reputation ruined. "Nonsense." Thea stood up for James. "My husband isn't like that. Why would he breed poisonous snakes? Thea, you may know him, but you won't know what he's actually like." "That's right. How long have you been married to James? Do you actually know what he's like as a person?" Some of them reprimanded Thea. Quincy was now mostly awake. She climbed off the table and sat on a chair, then said weakly, "I know James wouldn't breed poisonous snakes. This was just an accident." James glanced at Quincy in commendation. This woman may be domineering, but she was sensible. Quentin became anxious. "Don't be fooled by him, Quincy. This is a poisonous snake, with acute poison. You need to be detoxified with special means and medicine. How are a few silver needles going to detoxify you? Not even my mentor would be able to accomplish that. Don't just trust that kid because you're Thea's best friend. James glanced at him. Just because you haven't seen it happen doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means you're ignorant. Hatred flashed through Quentin's gaze as he stared at James. He then gave the man beside him a look. Ads by Pub Future. The man understood that look. He turned around and left. Quentin continued, Quincy, can't you see Thea and James planned this? They're just pretending. He looked at everyone else. We all know James married into his wife's family. He's trash, but Thea brought him here anyway. Why did she do that? It must have been to pretend that James is cooler than he is. The way I see it, Key and Lon must have been paid off by Thea to collude with James. The crowd suddenly had a revelation at those words. No, that's not it, Thea insisted. James, however, could not be bothered explaining. Colluding with him. Was there a need for that? What kind of person is he, able to imagine such a ridiculous scenario? Let's go, Thea. Wasting more time on them was the last thing James wanted. Wanna leave? Quentin barred their way. What, you've been exposed, so now you're leaving? He said coldly. James looked at him. What else do you want? He could deduce that Quentin was the one that had bred the snake, but he had no evidence, so he said nothing. Yet now it was backfiring on him. Students, James must have been breeding poisonous snakes, Quentin said loudly. If you don't believe me, we can go search his room. I'll apologize if we can't find anything. But if we do find something, I'm sure I don't have to tell you the obvious, do I? James had a bad feeling when he heard that. He had noticed that one of Quentin's men snuck away earlier. If his guess was right, it was so he could plant a poisonous snake in his room. He had been too careless, not seeing such a lowly trick beforehand. Fine, we'll go. Thea was sure of his innocence. She wasn't afraid. James, on the other hand, frowned. What, scared? Quentin said coldly at his expression. Quincy, still sat on the chair, eyed James suspiciously. Did he actually breed poisonous snakes? She thought to herself. What are you afraid of, James? James turned to look at Quincy, then shrugged. At this point, he had nothing to say. All he could do was allow them to search his room. As for whether they'd find snakes in there, he was not sure anymore. Let's go. Everyone went back to the hotel. Quincy was helped along by some of them. Soon enough, they arrived at the room. James took his room card out and opened the door. He turned on the lights. The group walked inside. James felt something was wrong the moment they walked inside. There was a small, gold box on the table. When he left, this box was definitely not in the room. Stop. Don't you move. Quentin shouted as he entered the room. James stood helplessly to the side. Quentin and a few others searched the room. They made a big show of searching the room. Eventually, they opened the gold box on the table and a small, golden viper sprang out. Most of the girls shrieked in shock. Quentin, on the other hand, was bold. He grabbed the viper and flung it brutally at a wall, charged at it, then stomped on it until it was dead. He then picked it up and approached James, tossing it before him. What's this, brat? Thea, too, looked at James. What's that? She remembered there was no such box on the table when they left. Why did it appear when they came back? So it really was James. Ads by Pub Future. What an evil man. This is a poisonous snake. It'll kill someone. Just how black is your heart? The students scolded him as they backed away from James and Thea. Quincy looked at James and Thea in bewilderment and disbelief, still being supported by others. You wanted me dead, Thea. What did I ever do to you? Quincy, let me explain. It isn't like that. I don't know what's going on. Thea scrambled to explain. Enough, Quincy said coldly, then continued, Thea, enough. I've always been thinking of you. I wanted you to find a good man, but you colluded with your husband to harm me. It's a good thing Mr. Goth was here, or I'd have been fooled by you too. Quentin walked over. Quincy, you have to be wary when you make friends in the future. Don't give your heart out to just anyone. People like Thea and James aren't worth your time. Quincy looked at them in disappointment, then left with a cold snort. The other students kept judging them and scolded Thea and James. Thea was so aggrieved that she was on the verge of tears. When everyone had left, Thea started crying. Why? Why did this happen? James walked over to her and gave her a comforting pat on her shoulder. It's not a big deal. There's no need to fret. We know we're innocent. James did not care about what other people thought of him. But we've clearly been framed. I don't know how to explain it to them. Don't worry, James reassured her. I'll investigate this and prove our innocence. James did not bother explaining because he did not know how to. This was his room. There was only one room card, and it had been in his possession the entire time. The Viper was indeed found in his room. There was no conclusive evidence otherwise, so no one would believe whatever he said. After they had left James's room, Quentin focused his attention on Quincy. How are you feeling now, Quinn? Are you still dizzy? I don't trust James. He may have detoxified you, but I think he must have left some trick behind. For your safety, how about I escort you back to the room and give you a full body examination? Sure enough, Quincy still felt somewhat dizzy. She was worried that the poison was not completely purged, so she nodded. Yeah. With that, the corners of Quentin's lips twitched upwards in a sly smile. All he needed to do was to get her into his room. He'll find a random excuse to feed her that drug. Once she eats it, she'll be at his mercy. She would not dare say anything once the deed was done and he had a recording of it. Just thinking of that made his heart sore. In the room, Thea was panicking. She had not expected to have a falling out with both her good friends because she attended a class reunion. There was nothing she could do about Juliana. She married into the Xenozers. Naturally, she would be on their side. Thea, on the other hand, offended the Xenozers for the Black Dragon. However, she really was framed in Quincy's case. What do we do, honey? You have to think of something. James sat on the chair, smoking a cigarette. It's fine. This isn't a big deal. Leave it to me, I'll solve it. You wait in the room. I'll go see if hotel management has a spare key card. James looked around the room. The windows were all closed. Quentin's goon would not have come in through the windows. There was only one way they could enter the room, and that was through the door. Go. Hurry. Thea pushed James out of the room. James walked out of the room to investigate the keycard matter and if Quentin had a connection to Dragon Fountain Villa. If he had a connection to them, getting a keycard would be easy. Meanwhile, Quincy walked out in a sexy bikini swimsuit. This swimsuit was shorter than average and more alluring. There were only 2 pieces of cloth for her chest and 2 hanging straps. Ads by Pub Future. Quentin helped Quincy into the room, then immediately locked the door behind him. Quincy was still alert. She frowned when he locked the door. What was that for, Mr. Goth? I'm using a secret treatment method, Quentin said promptly. It can't be exposed. If someone walks in on us, my mentor will kill me if he found out. With that, Quincy's suspicions were gone. Come lie down, Quinn. He helped Quincy to the bed and helped her lie down. Quincy was affected by snake poison. Even though James had forced out the poison from her with his silver needles, she still felt dizzy after walking a while. She only felt much better after lying down. Quentin, on the other hand, made a show of examining her wound. It was still red and swollen. This doesn't look too good, Quinn. There are still lingering toxins in here. If it's not drained out in time, something bad would happen. Thank you, Mr. Goth, Quincy said weakly. I need to use my mouth to clear it out, Quentin said seriously. Quincy blushed. You use his mouth. How embarrassing. Is there no other way? She asked, her face flushed red. Quentin pretended to be serious. Sorry, that was too abrupt. I'll go get the medicine. You should take it. It'll stop the toxin from spreading. He walked toward the table, opened the bag to take a small bottle out, and dumped out a pill. Here, eat up. Quincy opened her mouth and swallowed the pill. Quentin grinned at the sight. He had carefully crafted the drug. Even the most virtuous woman would turn into a slut if ingested. Quincy felt faint after ingesting the drug. She did not bother thinking too hard about it, since she thought it was because of the venom still in her body. Quentin, meanwhile, took his camera out of his bag and placed it around the room for a while before adjusting it to a good angle. Then, he turned to look at Quincy on the bed. Quincy had her eyes closed, her face flushed. Quentin swallowed as he stared at Quincy's seductive body. He had never played with such a good body. He was a doctor, and his mentor was one of the best in the field. He could tell from a glance that Quincy was still a virgin. She still had not done anything with men. He felt that he was extremely lucky. After today, Quincy would be all his. Quinn. He gently nudged her. Quincy slowly opened her eyes, her gaze bleary. Her vision was fuzzy. She saw a silhouette, but could not make out who it was. Slowly, her vision cleared and she saw who stood in front of her. Jamie, is that you? To her, the person in front of her was the boyfriend she had 10 years ago. The person she longed for. Yes, it's me. Quentin laughed in joy. This was the magic of his drug. It confused the mind, so the woman affected would think she was looking at the person she loved and would willingly be at his mercy. He laid down next to Quincy and hugged her. At this moment, Quincy was completely mesmerized and responded naturally. Someone stood outside the window. It was James. He frowned at the scene he was witnessing. Ads by Pub Future. He was not planning on interfering. However, he could not just sit idly by anymore. If anything, she was still his girlfriend 10 years ago. He used force, and the window was instantly pushed open. Quentin had just hugged Quincy, but loosened his grip as he heard the movement and turned around on reflex. He watched as James crawled into the room. Do you wanna die, brat? He shouted furiously. Get out of here. James walked in and sat down in a chair, then lit a cigarette. He glanced at Quincy, then said casually, Don't be like that, Quentin. I took the blame for you, yet here you are, enjoying yourself. How about you let me have a go, too? Quentin had thought James was here to start trouble. He had seen James's skill. Not even several burly men were a match for him. Hearing James's words, he laughed aloud. No problem, kid. You can have a turn after I've had my fun. Right now, you can stand aside and watch. Oh, right. What's up with her? Why isn't she resisting? James asked, feigning ignorance. You don't know this, but she ate a drug I made. Even the most chaste woman would turn into a slut when it's ingested. She's now at my mercy. Really? James continued. How long does it last? I don't want it to wear off while it's my turn. I'd be in trouble. I've wanted her for a while, just never had an opportunity. Haha, she'll be at our mercy the entire night. Quentin laughed gleefully. He lunged at Quincy, unable to hold back anymore. However, James stood up and yanked him back, then threw him violently to the ground. Quentin had the air knocked out of him. It hurt so much that he could not even crawl back up. He pointed a finger at James. You bastard, he shouted. You wanna go first? I'll tell you right now that that's impossible. I worked so hard for this. I'm going first. There was no way he could tolerate the thought of James going first. Instead, James walked over to the camera Quentin had planted and took out the memory card. He waved it at Quentin, who was now unsteadily getting to his feet, and smiled faintly. Let's see you turn this around now. PFFT. Realization of James's true intentions dawned on Quentin, and he spat out a mouthful of blood in anger. James walked towards the bed and shook his head at Quincy, still lying on the bed. "Beauty truly is one's undoing," he said with a sigh. "You're not safe anywhere when you're beautiful." He understood the curse of beauty well. Such things often happened to Thea, too. He then went to the bathroom and got a bucket of cold water, tossing it abruptly onto Quincy. Quincy sputtered and trembled at the sudden cold, but regained her clarity. She got up at the sight of James and gave him a slap. However, strength left her body at that moment and she once again fell onto the ground. She stared at James in a daze, then crawled up his body and wrapped her limbs around him. James frowned. What a scary drug. He pushed Quincy away, then pricked several silver needles into her body. At the same time, Quentin silently picked up a chair and swung it brutally towards the back of James's head. Die. Quentin swung the wooden chair at the back of James's head. James reacted quickly. He turned and raised his arm just in time, and the wooden chair shattered on his arm. The chair was sturdy and made of solid wood. Quentin felt like he had swung the chair at a brick wall instead. His body recoiled and he fell to the ground with a cry of pain. James brushed debris off his arm, then looked at Quentin, now on the floor. He walked over to him and pressed a foot on his body. Scum! Ah! Quentin's expression twisted in pain as he yelled. James ignored him and walked back to the bed. He helped Quincy up and got her to sit on her knees. However, Quincy's strength had left her entirely. She slumped over like her bones had all liquefied. James stopped her fall in time. He pressed down on her shoulder to prevent her from falling over again. At the same time, he reached out with his other hand and prodded her back, sliding down slowly along her spine to her buttocks. He did this several times, then laid her down and picked up her arm. He pressed down on her shoulder with a finger, sliding it all the way down to her fingertips. Ads by Pub Future. He repeated this on her other arm. After that, he did the same to her legs, starting from the top of her thigh down to the soles of her feet. This technique, combined with his silver needles, forcibly expelled the drug from her body. Quincy finally regained consciousness. When her mind was clear, she spotted James. She remembered vaguely how James was touching her and lifted her arm to slap him. "What did you do to me, you bastard?" she shouted. James easily caught her arm. "I saved you. Is this how you return that favor?" he said impassively. You saved me." Quincy was confused. She recalled how she had entered a room with Quentin, but had little recollection about what happened after that. "Get up if you have energy. Wear something less revealing when you get to your room. Any man would be pushed to his limits with you wearing that," James said, then turned towards the entrance. He opened the door and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Someone help. Look, something's happened." He did not care how this would affect Quincy. All he wanted was to prove Thea's and his innocence. That shout quickly drew a crowd. Quincy saw Quentin on the ground still groaning in pain when she got up and immediately knew what happened. She walked towards the door. She felt a wave of weakness overcome her and fell towards James just as she got to the door. She grabbed onto James before she could fall and steadied herself. Quincy still felt weak all over and held tightly onto James so she would not fall. Many people rushed into the room. Thea, too, arrived, but froze when she saw the intimate scene between James and Quincy. James spotted Thea, too, and hurriedly let go of Quincy to walk towards her. Quincy, now with no support, caught herself with the wall before she could fall to the ground. She grimaced at James as she stood up weakly. "Damn it, James. Would it kill you to help me out for a few minutes?" "It's not what it looks like, Thea," James said, now at Thea's side. Thea glared at him, then walked hurriedly towards Quincy. "What's wrong, Quinn?" she asked. Quincy shook her head. I don't know. Ask James. He knows. With that, everyone's gaze fell on James. They all had doubtful looks on their faces. Quentin had taken Quincy away so he could treat her. Why was James in Quentin's room? Some of Quentin's classmates entered the room and helped him up when they spotted him groaning in pain on the ground. James, you bastard. Why'd you hit him? You're not going anywhere until we know what happened here. They all started yelling. Quentin spoke through the pain. I was treating Quinn's wounds when he climbed in through the window and wanted to sexually assault her. I tried to stop him, but he hit me. So that's the kind of person you are, James. What a bastard. The men all started rebuking him, staring at Quincy. She was so sexy, so alluring. No wonder James did that. Most men present all thought the same thing, but none had the guts to act upon it. Thea did not believe a word Quentin said. She helped Quincy up. Is that true, Quinn? I don't know. Quincy's mind was befuddled after ingesting that drug. She did not remember what had happened. All she knew was that James was touching her. She shook her head weakly. I don't know. I can vaguely remember James picked me up and was groping my back, arms, and legs. PFFT. James burst into laughter. He detoxified her out of kindness. How did it turn into him groping her? That's exactly it, Quentin said. I went to stop him, but he started beating me up. Let's call the cops. Scum like him would drag society down. Everyone started chiming in. Ads by Pub Future. At that moment, even Quincy grew confused. At first, she thought Quentin was the one that tried to do something to her and that James had saved her. Now that the crowd was saying otherwise, she felt it was the other way around, too, and that Quentin only got beaten up because he tried to stop James. Quentin shared a look with some of his classmates. He has a memory card in his possession, he muttered. Go beat him up and use the chance to take it back. The classmate understood. James, you bastard. Scumbag. I'll kill you. They all charged at James to beat him up so they could take the memory card. James showed no mercy. With one kick, the 5 people were sent flying backward. He was too skilled. No one else dared attack him. James glanced at Quincy. I gave you a way out, he said impassively. But since even you misunderstood me, I have no choice but to treat everyone to a free show. He took out the memory card and walked further into the room, placing it back into the camera to play the video. The crowd followed him and gathered around the camera. The room was now filled with people, all staring unblinkingly at the video. When it got to the part where Quentin pounced on her, Quincy flushed red and turned the camera off. Quentin's face, on the other hand, was deathly pale. So that's what happened. Quentin's just a beast in human clothing. This was all Quentin's fault. We got James all wrong. James is the good guy here. This was a good opportunity, but he never took advantage of it. What an upstanding man. Everyone realized the truth. James grinned at Quincy, whose face was still red. It's not over. The best part's after that. Let everyone watch it. It'll prove my innocence. Quincy glared at James. Say one more word and I'll tear your mouth off. James chuckled. All right. Everything's fine now. Quincy is fine. I got here just in time and used my unparalleled medical skills to purge the toxins from her body. He looked at Quincy again and laughed. Remember to wear more when you get back. It'd be hard not to get assaulted when you're dressed like that. Also, remember to drink warm water when you return to your room. There are still some traces of the drug left in your body, but you can just pee it out. Haha. Some of the people burst out laughing. Embarrassed, Quincy said hurriedly, Thea, help me back to my room. All right. Thea nodded. At that moment, Kian and Kellen, his manager, appeared. Wow. Kian's here. His fans started screaming. However, Kian knelt in front of Thea under everyone's gaze. What? They all stared in shock. What was happening now? Kian shocked everyone with his kneeling. He was a huge celebrity, popular throughout the world. Almost every woman in both classes loved Kian. Yet now, he was kneeling in front of Thea. Kian was forced into this. He did not want to die. I was wrong, Ems. Thea, he pleaded on the ground. Please forgive me. Just pretend I never said anything. One of Kian's fans became annoyed and went up to him to help him up. What's wrong with you, Kian? You can't kneel for her. Your knees are more valuable than that. You are a huge star. You're my idol. Thea, what did you do to Kian? They started berating Thea. Their idol was kneeling because of Thea. They were angry now. Quincy, too, looked at Thea in confusion. Thea was the only one that knew what this was about. She shot James a look. James told her he would speak to Kian. Why was Kian now kneeling before her and apologizing profusely? Honey, she stared at James. James shrugged. Don't look at me. I don't know why he's doing that. You stand up first, Thea said hurriedly. No, I'm not getting up until you forgive me. Kian was afraid James would feed him to the fishes if Thea did not forgive him. I forgive you. With that, Kian was happy. Thank you, Ems. Thea, he said quickly, then got up and walked away as everyone stared after him, stunned. The crowd was confused. No one knew what had just happened. What's wrong, Thea? Quincy asked. It's nothing. Thea said nothing more and helped Quincy walk to her room. Soon enough, they were in Quincy's room. Quincy laid down against her pillow. I'm sorry, Thea. I misunderstood you. Thank you to you and James. If it weren't for him, I don't think I'd have been able to escape tonight. Thea smiled. We're best friends. Helping you is what I should do. Help me wash up. I feel so weak. I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep after washing up. We'll talk about everything else tomorrow and call the cops after the monument's been erected. Quentin had broken the law. Quincy had to report this to the police. Quentin must endure the punishment he deserves. Thea helped Quincy bathe, but did not leave after that. Thea, get me a glass of warm water. Quincy remembered James's advice. Okay. Thea poured her a glass of water. After that, she kept Quincy company. Meanwhile, outside the villa, Lon had been waiting for hours, since the afternoon. He had called his boss in the afternoon to send someone over. They were already here, but they did not act rashly and just waited for nightfall. Inside a car, Lon had tied a gauze around his nose. He glanced at the time. It was 10 at night. Hatred flashed across his expression. I want you dead, James. Thea and Quincy, you bitches, you'll get what's coming later. Lon, it's 10, one of the people said. When are we making our move? Lon waved a hand in dismissal. Don't rush. We keep waiting. We'll make our move once they're asleep. Oh, right. Did you prepare it? Yeah, it's ready, the person said. This knockout gas is specially formulated. Even inhaling just a little will make them sleep like a log. Haha. Lon laughed evilly. Dragon Fountain Villa. In the Mountain Resort Hotel. James lied in bed, idly playing a game of Plants vs. Zombies. He glanced at the time. It was almost 10 at night, but Thea was not back. He knew then that Thea might not be returning to the room and was sleeping in Quincy's room. He quit the game and yawned, then went to prepare for bed. At that moment, he felt a wave of murderous intent. He tensed up and snuck to the window, then pulled the curtains open abruptly. He caught a glimpse of someone jumping from the second-floor balcony, who then proceeded to run back towards the mountain. James did not hesitate. He opened the window and jumped, then jumped again when his feet touched the balcony and landed on the parapet, then leaped down several meters to the ground floor immediately after to give chase. James was fast, but the other person was fast, too. James gave chase, all the way to the back of Mount Dragon Fountain. In front of him was now a dense forest. James slowed down and walked forward cautiously, his senses alert as he took in his surroundings. Rustle. The wind blew, sending fallen leaves flying and rustling tree branches. "Who's there? Show yourself." James's voice rang out. At that moment, he jerked his head upwards as he shot a silver needle out. A man dressed in black stood on a large tree 20 meters ahead, his face obscured by a mask. The person dogged the needle nimbly, like an agile monkey. He hopped quickly down from the tree and soon landed on the ground. James stared at the masked man in front of him. Ads by Pub Future. He could sense a strong bloodlust from him. It was an aura that he had never encountered before. Someone who possessed such an intense murderous aura was someone whose hands were stained with blood. "Who are you?" James said in a cold, deep voice. "The one who's going to kill you," a hoarse voice said. With that, the man charged forward. He was fast, kicking up leaves behind him as he ran. The 20-something meter gap between them was closed in a matter of seconds. This person was faster than the world sprint champion. He raised an arm as he appeared right in front of James, unleashing a harsh blow. This strike was incredibly powerful, with a great force behind it. James raised an arm to meet it, blocking the opponent's attack. He felt the extreme force as they made contact. To his shock, his body was moved slightly from the blow. His expression darkened. This was the most powerful opponent he had ever gone up against. The masked person was pushed backward with a powerful force. The masked person performed a backflip in midair and landed smoothly on the ground before standing back up and charging at him again. James, too, kept up with his counterattack. As they fought, James studied his opponent. He was around 170 centimeters tall. He was not fat, with slender, gloved arms. The gloves were made from a special material. His legs were long and slender but packed an explosive force. This was a woman. However, her moves were strange. She did not use a regular moveset. Instead, all her blows were aimed at vital points, designed to kill. An assassin. James's judgment was accurate. The masked woman was an assassin. They continued trading blows in the forest. James's fist shot out in a powerful punch. His opponent's body was too agile. She dodged it and climbed up another big tree. His fist smashed against the tree. The tree shook from the force, and a hole appeared on its trunk. James pulled back. At that instant, he heard the sound of whooshing wind above him. He raised his hand to block the incoming attack. He successfully blocked one punch, but could not block the second. His shoulder was hit. His body slumped forward and he fell to the ground. Before he could stand up, a sharp dagger came flying at him. What a strong assassin, he thought to himself, stunned. His body sprung itself back up and avoided being stabbed. He turned in midair and swung a fierce kick towards his opponent's head. The assassin was powerful and agile, but James was not weak, either. His change in movement was too fast for the assassin to react to in time. By the time she did, it was too late. His kick did not land on her head, but on her body. She was sent flying backward and landed violently against a tree, then slumped to the ground. Spurt. She spat out a mouthful of blood as her head tilted forward. She tried to get back up, but James chased after her. He pinned her down with one foot. The assassin could not move. James bent down to take the mask off. At that moment, she pulled out a dagger from her leg and swung it quickly towards James. However, James was well prepared for this. The moment she moved, a silver needle pricked her in her arm and she went limp, dropping the dagger onto the ground. James smiled blandly and pulled the mask away. The assassin really was a woman. He took some silver needles out and stuck them into the woman, then lifted his leg from her and walked over to sit on a nearby rock and lit a cigarette. The assassin's strength was drained from her body, but she could still move. She stood up with great difficulty and sat with her back against the tree. Ads by Pub Future. James watched her as he smoked. She seemed young, around 25 or 26. She was also beautiful, but there was a cold indifference within that beauty. Speak. Who sent you? You caught me. I have nothing to say to you. Just kill me if that's what you want. I have no complaints. The assassin's voice was as cold as a glacier. Not gonna talk. James smiled faintly and picked up a leaf before casually tossing it. The leaf flew, striking directly at the assassin's acupuncture point. She fell instantly to the ground and let out a pained scream. Her body stung all over as if she had been struck by someone. She was a well-trained assassin. An instant after she let out that yell, she fell silent, gritting her teeth as she suffered in silence. James frowned at the sight. He knew that sensation. He could hardly believe a woman could endure it. He walked over to her and pulled needles out of her body, easing the pain she felt. Then, he sat back on the rock. Since force could not get her to speak, he would use a gentler approach. You should know who I am if you're here to kill me. You should also be aware that your chances of succeeding were slim, and what happens if you had failed to kill me. The assassin had gotten back up. She leaned against the tree and stared at James, watching closely for an opening in case James let his guard down so she could finish her job. Her gaze betrayed her. Don't waste time thinking about such pointless things, James said flippantly. You can't kill me, but I don't have to kill you. Just answer my questions, and I promise I'll let you go if your answers satisfy me. Ha! The assassin laughed. Since I tried to kill you, it means I'm prepared to die. In our line of work, we dance with death all the time. Surviving a job isn't guaranteed. I don't care if I live or die. I doubt that. James smiled faintly. You're here to kill me, and I'm guessing it's for money. Since you don't care about life or death, that means you think of money as more important than your life. But, money is of no use to you if you're dead. Tell me, how much did they offer you? I'll double it. Just kill me. James frowned. This woman was hard to crack. He pondered for a moment, then walked over to her and removed her clothes. He flashed her a wicked smirk. We're in a dense forest. This is a place of pleasure. You're pretty, too. It'd be a waste if you just died. I'll kill you after I've had my fun. The assassin closed her eyes, not bothering to resist. She knew it would be pointless. James reached out and caressed her body. She sat there limply, like a dead fish. James grumbled inwardly. Who on earth trained her? Her mouth was sealed shut. He only wanted to scare her into talking. He had not planned on actually doing anything to her.